Welcome to Borderline Winning, the podcast where life is messy, progress is progress, and nobody actually has it all together. I'm your host, Sharina J, and this is a place where we will talk about real life, the good, the hard, the awkward, and the hilarious parts we don't usually put on social media. Some days you feel like you're crushing it. Some days you feel like you're barely holding it together. And most days you're probably somewhere in between, which means congratulations, you're borderline winning. Here, we're going to laugh, learn, and be honest about what it really looks like to grow, heal, and move forward one imperfect step at a time. So grab your coffee, your water, or your emotional support snack, and let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about something we don't say out loud enough. Some days I wake up at 100%, clear mind, strong energy, motivated, focused. But most days, I'm somewhere around 40 to 50%. And for a long time, I believed something dangerous. I believed that if I couldn't give my all, I shouldn't give anything. If I wasn't at my best, I should wait. If I wasn't fully confident, I should stay quiet. If I didn't feel strong, I should postpone. But what if 40% is still winning? What if showing up at 40% is actually the flex? Let's talk about the lie we've all been sold. We've been conditioned to believe effort has to equal excellence. If it's not perfect, don't post it. If you're tired, cancel it. If you're unsure, don't try. We've glamorized peak performance like it's sustainable. But real life isn't lived at peak performance. We are not machines. We're humans with emotions, with responsibilities, with stress and health fluctuations, with businesses, schools, trauma, healing seasons. And yet, we expect ourselves to operate like robots. Waiting until you feel ready has become socially acceptable procrastination. But here's the truth: you might never feel ready. This is the math that nobody talks about. If you only show up when you're at 100%, you're going to miss most of your life because 100% days are rare. Parenting at 60% still shapes your child. Believe me, they would rather have you at your 60% than not at all. Leading at 50% still impacts someone. Recording at 40% still reaches ears that need it. Going to the gym at 30% still builds discipline. Momentum is not built on high energy days. It's built on the days you didn't feel like it. You know those people you admire? They're not always at 100%. They're just consistent at 40. They learned that imperfect consistency beats occasional intensity, and that is where identity is formed. Our identity is built in the almost didn't moments. Confidence isn't built when you feel confident. It's built when you keep promises to yourself that would have been easier not to. It's the I almost didn't record this. I almost skipped that workout. I almost said never mind. I almost let today slide. That almost didn't moment, that's the pivot. That's where self trust is built. That's where you stop being the person who waits and starts becoming the person who shows up anyway. And that shift, that's real life winning. You know, there are days I don't fully feel confident behind this mic. Yes, I've done a TEDx Detroit talk. I have spoken in front of thousands of people on stages, but this is different. This is really pouring out who I am on an everyday basis that you guys get to see. And there are days I'm navigating things you don't see. There are days my energy is low, my thoughts feel heavy, my body feels tired. There are days where 40% feels generous. But guess what? I show up anyway. Not because I feel powerful, not because I feel perfectly polished, but because showing up is who I'm becoming. And I don't want to build a life that only exists on best days. I don't want to miss out on those days I want to spend with my friends and family, even though I'm only at 20, 30, 40%. I want to build a life that moves forward on my ordinary ones. So here's your permission slip. You're allowed to try tired. You're allowed to create messy. You're allowed to progress quietly. And you're allowed to show up halfway. Halfway still counts. 40% still moves the needle, and done is braver than perfect. And effort on a low energy day builds more resilience than ease ever could. I can tell you yesterday was a day that I had a scheduled ski lesson. My body was probably feeling at 30 to 40%. My mind was probably at 20% yesterday, and I still showed up. And I can just say that, you know, the fear of skiing for me is one of my biggest hurdles. Last year, I was in a really bad ski accident going down a double black diamond, and it affected me in a lot of ways. It affected my memory for almost 3 months. I was repeating myself, forgetting things constantly. My emotions were unregulated. I had a severe concussion. And I can say that even after all those health things, it caused so much fear and lack of confidence in myself. That's what I'm trying to overcome. But I still keep showing up for myself. And like I said, my confidence is not all there anymore. I'm starting back on the bunny hill, but that's still showing up. That's still showing up for myself. And eventually, I have been on the blue and the green hills again, but it didn't feel okay for me. I needed to go all the way back to the beginning and keep showing up for myself. So I am. That's where I'm at. And that's the truth. So I don't know who needs to hear this today, but show up for yourself, show up for your kids, show up for your family. And it's okay if that energy is less than optimal for you, but at least you're there and memories are still being formed during this time. I hope that helps someone today. If not, it at least helped me talking about it. So let's redefine what showing up actually means. Most people think showing up equals high energy and big effort and perfect mood. However, showing up doesn't mean being your best. It means being present at your current capacity. For example, let's take a business meeting. 100% day, maybe you can lead the meeting. A 60% day, maybe you can participate. A 30% day, maybe you can just listen. A 10% day, maybe that means just sitting in the room, but that still counts. The minimum effective dose concept means that on low energy days, ask what is the smallest version of this that still honors my commitment? What can I do at least to show up? What is the minimum? So, an example would be I can't do a full workout, but I can stretch for 5 minutes. Maybe I can't host dinner, but I can order pizza and we can still sit together. I can't solve my friend's problems, but sending a thinking of you text would work. You can't talk deep with your spouse or your partner? Just sit next to them on the couch and hold their hand. A small presence is greater than a total absence in life. Sometimes low energy becomes isolation because people are ashamed and you don't have to pretend you're okay to show up. You just have to be willing to be real. Like you could say something as simple as, I'm a little drained today, but I still wanted to come. Or I don't have a lot of energy, but do care. So that's going to help you build a connection instead of just performance. I manage a body with real physical limitations, especially being a wheelchair user. I mean, right now with snow and it being winter, it's very hard sometimes to meet up with friends and to ask them, hey, is the sidewalk shoveled there so I can get my wheelchair out of the car and get into the restaurant? My energy is drained being a mom, working out, trying to build my podcast and get my message out to the world. So I feel like some days my body does cooperate and some days it doesn't. But I've learned that 40% of me is still valuable. And that's leadership. It's not weakness. So let me ask you, who will be grateful for you showing up today? Your child, your spouse, your future self? your community. So let's talk about the 3-level framework. Level 1, physical presence. Just be there. Level 2, emotional presence. Offer a sentence, a hug, one text. Level 3, intentional presence. If you can, add a warmth, like maybe add eye contact, a question, but all 3 count. Your people don't need the polished version of you. They need the consistent version of you. Remember, consistency builds trust. Perfection builds pressure. So before this episode ends, I want you to sit with this. Where are you waiting to feel 100% before starting? What 40% effort looks like today for you? What tiny version of your big goal could you complete before you go to sleep? Because sometimes the bravest things you could do is reduce the standard and raise your consistency. And I have to ask myself those same questions. It's time for the tiny but mighty win report. I kind of spoke about my tiny but mighty win earlier about skiing, but really, I would have to say getting over the fear, getting over the lack of energy, and getting out and going skiing and showing up for myself definitely was my tiny but mighty win. Did you do something this week that you had to push yourself to do? Or maybe there's just something that made you happy this week that you succeeded in? I hope you recognize your tiny but mighty win. And that's it for today's episode of Borderline Winning. If this made you laugh, think, or feel a little less alone, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it. Remember, life doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. Life is messy, and progress is still progress. I'm your host, Sharina J. And until next time, be kind to yourself, keep showing up, and don't forget, you're probably doing better than you think. Talk to you soon.